Well, hello there, everyone. Here to show you the Mars Science Calling activity right here. As you see right here, is I went into right here is a picture right here of like say it's like a like a scene from like a, one of those National Geographic, I guess kind of like an example of a National Geographic type magazine about exploring water on Mars. And if most of us can remember, that mission would have been about 13 years ago, something like that. That they would have been exploring water. That they had a robot rover that came over to say landed on the surface of Mars and ended up is detouring parts of the planet. And knowing that I always wondered though that I'm like that I can remember that I had got like say it's like an image mission image certificate or something like that from whenever that they went to they sent a rover to Mars just to get photographs. And knowing that you see right here is I would hit include right here of a drawing. And I was not looking at no pictures or nothing, but basically what I would include right here is like some scenes of some mountains right here of it could be like plateaus or some parts of say areas like that that say for the planet. And knowing from where the rover was detouring the parts of say of the planet right here and along right there is the rocks. And what I would do right here is like for the pencil right here is add in right here some of the detail right there is like for the rocks right there. But knowing about if this was like say a science project that more likely that I could have been working on, maybe if it could have been like it maybe for class reasons or anything like that. That knowing about, I'm like that knowing do the studies about the types of rocks that they found and then maybe what they're called, that type of stuff. But for the most part is knowing about that the surface about Mars is knowing that that they seen the like a spot right here. And I can remember hearing about this that on the news. And then I had that that certificate, I think that you see that mission award or something like that that you're talking about is like from whenever they were exploring water, say mission for finding water on Mars. And I'm thinking that they more like I guess the results were that they had a it landed a rover on Mars, and more likely that they had found some samples of frozen water. I guess that's more likely that that's really the only thing that they found was that after they found there was I guess a spot somewhere like on the on Mars surface to where somewhere where it looked like it was water. And I went ahead and drew this right here. If most of us have seen like say a black and white version of like the photo, but that I'm sure that nowadays on like say internet sites that they would have something more like maybe a little bit more realistic. But I went ahead and drew right here an example right here of say like a par surface right here to where water was flowing. And it looks kind of like about almost similar to a little bit the picture that that I had seen. And knowing that where I'll be working right here is like a color version right here, knowing that I don't know exactly about what the ground and what the soil would more likely look like. But let's just say that right here would be is that I'll go and use right here as a pencil is that you have right here of like surface right here to where this right here would be covered back nearly maybe 5 million, maybe 10 or 50, 1,000 years ago, something like that. Maybe I'm like some people that have done the math and known about that that if there would have been water that used to flow on Mars, is knowing about life on Mars, it more likely it would have been about between 2 or 3,000 years ago at the most. But then it's like that some that may say, oh no, it was it's been nearly 15,000 centuries ago, something like that, at least maybe 2 or 3 million years ago, etc., etc. But let's just say though that if this right here was like like a spot to where that maybe that the water once at one time that they were saying that there was a spot on the surface of Mars to where that they seen that more likely that contained water at one time ago. And we see right here is that right here will be say like for how deep the soil is, and knowing about if this right here was like a place to where water was flowing at one time, and then it was like, oh well, and then it's all dried up and then all it's just like an empty spot. It's like an empty, I guess if we want to go and call it an empty fingerprint inside the ground. This is more likely what the rover's seen, knowing about. We got this picture right here, and this is more likely what it looks like right here. And knowing about that this between this corner and this corner over here measured at about, I would say maybe about 100 feet, length, 100 feet, facing, say, from the north and the south, something like that. But let's just say that if this was a spot to where that they knew that more likely they contained water, and you have right here is like the surface of Mars. This right here, space, outer space would be at about, right up here. I'm like, anybody wonder though? I'm like, yeah, Mars has it to where day and night that they would have it to where that whenever the planets, if the planets orbit around the sun, but let's just say that they have like the day and night right there. You got right here is a little bit of the sky, but you have right here, like say this one right here would be like say the surface of Mars right here, and knowing about that really that at one time, if Mars contained, like say, is like any types of containers of water, and if it would go by say the Mars is like Mars like science, or Mars do science, Mars was science, something like that. But like fill in the blank right here, and if we were to think about that knowing about say Mars blank science, and if we were to say is like for Mars, you say for Mars discover its science, and if I can go ahead and pick right here, if like for Mars, for type of words that more likely I like to pick for, like what you call is like type of mission to knowing about. I'm like, yeah, that we gotta call an activity to we're talking about, if we explored, about the whole purpose about the types of soil and rocks and stuff like that are on Mars, that maybe have relate to, like say, the pronoun signals spreading between like and do and was, and knowing about it could be like what you call likely. Guess we can go say for Mars likely science. For Mars likely science. And knowing about, I'm like, yeah, if I say that, yeah, well, shouldn't there be an E between here and knowing about, with an E right here. But talk about, say, for Mars likely science, and knowing that, for any type of words that more likely try to put them together, for knowing about the type of thing you'd like to have for like the assignment. But let's just say though that if at one time that the water on Mars, and a lot of times that knowing that I'm like, yeah, that for if the air on Mars was ever, they say that it's like the air was pretty much filled with carbon monoxide and was not breathable, that type of stuff, during that time. But let's just see right here, as you have right here, is the Mars rover. Mars rover, and I'll go ahead and add right here maybe some more rocks about right here. Add some rocks, about right here. But let's just say though that back those couple of years ago that had to where that there was a spot that the rover would be you're rovering around parts on like your places, certain areas of say of the planet Mars, and it came to a stop, and knowing that they seen this portion right here of the Mars surface to where at this spot right here, including maybe about maybe a mile and a half further away, something like that, maybe up to the north, far east or something like that, that there would look like that there was a spot to where water used to flow. And now I can tell anybody here that that I know that besides what you call sending a man to the moon, that I'm sure that say for the Mars mission, knowing about, I'm like, yeah, did at one time did the Mars, did the planet Mars contain any sources of life? And that knowing about that some that may say that yeah, well, the air needs to be what you call breathable, and on your hand that knowing that if it's for any type of life, and knowing that for any type of life there is knowing that for any, like, if it could be like what you call besides germ life, but any type of sea life or anything like that, but knowing about that with this spot right here for where possibly that there could have been a life on Mars at one time. And whole purpose about knowing about all about the fact of knowing about it's like the discoverer, like for the answer to knowing about that, like for how much time we're willing to put into what you call for the understanding about the whole purpose about for reading say the most updated articles. But other than that, like talking say for the Mars say likely science say connectivity.